What can we do about this stuff? All right. Well, first of all, we've got to get these pollutants out of our atmosphere, out of our bodies, and out of our environment. Now, I am not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I'm not a licensed healthcare practitioner of any kind. So what I'm about to share with you is just infotainment. Do not use this information without the advice of a licensed physician. So, you know, we always want to do what the FDA and the AMA and all the government agencies want us to do. We need to be good citizens and always do what we're told by our government. So, you know, do not go using this information without using a licensed healthcare practitioner. So what do we do for these various steps to protect ourselves? Well, the first thing you've got to do is detoxification and cellular regeneration. So we've got to address the physical body. And before you start doing any kind of cleansing programs or anything like that, you've got to get testing to know what's going on with your specific health. I see so many people that just say, oh, I've got this symptom or that symptom, and then they just go willy-nilly taking a shotgun approach, trying this thing and that thing, and half the time it doesn't work, or more than half the time. And they waste a lot of time and money on stuff that just doesn't work. So you've got to get testing to know what's going on in your body. And so there are screening methodologies and tests that I use depending on what I'm doing. Hair analysis is a good screening method where you take a clip of hair, send it off to a lab, have it analyzed, and it will tell you what heavy metals you've got in your body, what toxicity and mineral deficiencies and imbalances you've got in your body. Fecal analysis is a more accurate method of doing that. You can also use quantum biofeedback, which is using very advanced scalar energy devices that you can get connected to that will read stressors in the body, and it can tell by reading the stressors in the body what you've been exposed to and what your health status is quite accurately. It's quite amazing. It's not a diagnostic device. It's not FDA approved for that, but I will tell you in my experience, it will tell you a lot of detail on what's going on in the body. So typically all I need normally is a hair analysis and quantum biofeedback with a Skio or an Indigo or Eductor or the Life System. Those are all different brands of quantum biofeedback machines. Or conventional medical tests, good old-fashioned lab tests also are good if you've got insurance and your insurance covers lab tests. But I will tell you, I used to work in pathology labs doing specimen testing, and most medical tests are not that indicative of what's going on, so you need more than just that usually. You got to test for heavy metals and toxins. And these GMO microbes, a lot of times, the medical system doesn't know how to test for these things. They don't even know they exist. And so you're not going to have a medical test showing that you've got a biowarfare agent in your body. However, quantum biofeedback will. These newer machines in particular, the Eductor and the Life System, they can identify a lot of biowarfare agents because they've got frequencies for them. And so that'll give you an idea of what's going on in your body. Then once you've identified what specifically is going on with your body, then you've got to do internal cleansing. I always start with intestinal cleansing, then I move on to kidney bladder cleansing, liver gallbladder cleansing next, then working on cleansing through the pores. By working on the thyroid, you can use herbal extracts and herbs to work specifically on the thyroid, heal the thyroid up. The thyroid, you know, all of the endocrine glands, they're like master controllers in the body. They regulate hormones in the body, which regulate thousands of functions in the body. And so with any detox and cleansing and healing program, you've got to work on the endocrine glands, and especially the thyroid and usually the adrenals and parathyroid and pancreas in order to bring the body back into balance. Just working on the thyroid will improve digestion, assimilation, brain function, memory, hair growth, all kinds of stuff. So if your hair is thinning, that's a classic thyroid problem. So I use herbal extracts. I sell certain herbal extracts for doing that. We'll get into that more in detail a little bit. And then you've got to do a heavy metal detox and a radiation detox. And when I say radiation, I don't just mean EMF, I mean nuclear radiation, because lots of people now have low-level radiation in their bodies, and that's part of the reason why thyroid problems are pandemic across this planet. And so we'll get into details on that. And then through all of that, you've got to do massive hydration, because what detoxification really is flushing the body. So you've got to have a lot of living water and fresh juices going through the body, especially green drinks that are high in chlorophyll, not sugars and not starchy drinks. Then you got to do external cleansing. You got to get this stuff off of the outside of you and your property and your environment. And so we'll talk more about this later, but there's different methods for doing that. And then you've also got to get nutrient-dense live food nutrition into the body. What do I mean by live food? I mean uncooked, raw and living plant-based diet. Now, there is a difference between a healing diet and a long-term maintenance diet. We're talking about a healing diet here. But if you really want to heal, you've got to get on a 100% live, raw, vegan diet, high in chlorophyll, low in sugars and starches, with proper food combining, meaning you don't want to be eating foods that digest slowly, like proteins and nuts and seeds and that kind of stuff, with foods that digest fast, like sugars and starches. And so you can learn about food combining online. And I teach about that as well on my blog at freshandliveblog.com. And stay away from animal products, at least while you're doing a cleansing diet. One of the biggest jumps that I had in my health years ago was when I stopped eating meat. And so when you're on a healing diet, you need to be off all animal products. Okay, so I mentioned vegetable juices are high in chlorophyll, and then, superfood detox tonics. I make these daily. It's very important that even once you've gotten detox and healed up and cleaned out, you've got to be detoxing on a daily basis to keep this stuff out of you. And so I make these superfood detox tonics that have a bunch of different superfoods and things in them, and detoxifiers. We'll get into that more in a moment. You've got to get the basic nutrients into you: vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and enzymes. And that's why living foods are so important, because you've got to get all four of those into you in the proper ratios. And living food has that. These foods have all of these in the proper ratios to each other. You can actually throw your body out of balance if you take in too many of one or the other. There are times, though, if you're very, very deficient in certain minerals or vitamins, that you need to take those specifically and bring those levels up. But food has got to be the foundation of your detox and diet program. And then, take in minerals like iodine and other things for healing the thyroid and detoxifying the body. Iodine is extremely healing. It's also anti-parasitical, and there are a lot of toxic forms of it on the market sold as supplements. So monoatomic or nascent iodine is what you want. We actually have a scalar energized iodine, monoatomic iodine at freshandlive.com that emits the anti-frequencies of all known radioactive elements. So not only does it give you the iodine and load up the thyroid with iodine to keep radioactive iodine out, but also it will neutralize radioactivity in the body. And this has been proven in Fukushima with this iodine. So it's really amazing stuff. And I know firsthand, because I've had radiation poisoning 3 times from food and had to learn how to heal it. And one of the things that I used was this alive iodine, this scalar energized iodine. There are tons, as it turns out, there are tons of foods and herbs that will remove radiation from the body. Among them, ashwagandha, reishi mushroom, Siberian American ginseng, coconut oil, vitamin C, especially liposomal vitamin C. We'll get more into some of the specific brands of that. And then you've got to use oral chelators to get the heavy metals out of the body. There's a product called Rad Detox, which actually we no longer sell that. We have, what is ours called? Ours is called Rad Zero. It's actually the same thing, but at any rate, I would buy the Rad Detox from liquidmana.com rather than me, because they have a better price on it. I got locked into a contract where I have to sell it at a higher price. So you can go to liquidmana.com and get Rad Detox, and that's really good for removing radiation from the body. Nanozeolites, specifically a product called Advanced TRS. These are a mineral that is manufactured. It's not a natural zeolite mineral, and so it can go into the body and remove toxins and heavy metals and pathogens from anywhere in the body that water can go. And I actually spray this in my eyes. You don't want to ever overdo zeolites. You can run into serious problems if you overdo them. But basically, if you take them as directed, I take 5 sprays a day, and 1 spray in each eye, and then 3 sprays in the mouth. And that will go into the brain and pull heavy metals out of the brain, which improves brain function and memory. They're having phenomenal results with autism, with the advanced TRS. And so that's a really amazing product. It's very, very different from other zeolites. And for those, by the way, who may have heard Mike Adams, he wrote an article saying that zeolites are toxic. Mike doesn't know what he's talking about. Mike is a wonderful, wonderful guy, and I love him, and he has been very kind to me. But the analysis that he did with his own machine on zeolites, he drew incorrect conclusions from it. He's not a scientist, and he doesn't understand really how to do empirical science and draw correct conclusions. And so he made some incorrect conclusions about zeolites. There are some toxic zeolites on the market, but definitely not the advanced TRS. There's no heavy metals in it at all because it's a manufactured zeolite. But there are other good zeolites on the market. For example, Omica, O-M-I-C-A, has some good ones. Brown seaweed extract has been proven phenomenally good for removing radiation from the body. Apple pectin, chlorophyll, a bunch of other things. There's lots of stuff. And then you've got to do a parasite and pathogen detox. We'll get more into that. Cellular hydration, as I mentioned, there are things you can do to improve it. Mega Hydrate and Crystal Energy from Dr. Patrick Flanagan is one. And then there are herbal extracts that are very, very important to use because nothing works like herbs for healing and detoxing the body. And so my favorite are Dr. Morse's herbs or Blessed Herbs, also Dr. Richard Schultz, herbdoc.com. And then there are certain Ormus supplements that most I do not recommend, but ancienttech.com has some good ones. And we are getting ready to release, I believe this week, some Ormus supplements from Vancouver Island Ormus, which is a very good product, as long as you don't overdo it. If you overdo it, you can run into trouble. Now, quantum biofeedback, this, as I mentioned, this is a really phenomenal way of getting some screening that can tell you a lot of details on what's going on with your body. Now, I have a local SCIO practitioner, and I found out that this technology can actually neutralize radioactivity in the body because I got radiation poisoning. I got nuclear fallout on my food 3 times and got poisoned, and it was very serious. I could have died from it. And I had to learn really, really fast how to heal it. And I did. The first time I got poisoning, it took me about 10 days to get completely over it. Second time, it took about 5 days. Third time, it took about 3 days. So I've learned how to really, neutralize radioactivity in the body and get it out of your body. And this device, the SCIO, I got hooked up to it. And I had ingested a salad. It was a sprout salad, but it had some greens in it from the health food store. And presumably, it must have come from California or somewhere. And I must have got some hot particles in me because by the time I got hooked up to this machine, it was showing alpha, beta, and gamma radiation damage in my guts, which is nuclear fallout. I mean, that's nuclear radiation. And so I had been using the advanced TRS nanozeolites, and that was what saved me. I was testing them. I had only had it for about 2 weeks, and I was testing them. So I was taking it every day. And that's what saved me because that latched on to the radioactive particles in my gut and pulled them out relatively quickly. So the radiation damage was not too bad. And then the SCIO actually was able to neutralize the remaining radioactivity in my gut. And in a 3-hour session, I was done. I was right as rain when I was done. So this is a very, very important technology for protecting us against nuclear radiation in the body. Now, also there are supplements, believe it or not. I mentioned the Rad Detox and Liquid Mana Rad Detox at liquidmana.com. That I think is $40 for a 4-ounce bottle. And I actually negotiated with the manufacturer to lower the price on it to get it to that price. And, but we were in contract with somebody else who was they co-formulated this product. And so long story short, we got locked into a contract where we cannot sell the Rad Detox. We have to sell the Rad Zero at a higher price. So the Rad Zero is basically the same thing, but it it costs more, considerably more. And so I recommend go to liquidmana.com to get the Rad Detox. I already mentioned the Cosiva Advanced TRS Nanozeolites. This is a phenomenal product for pulling toxins and pathogens out of the body. The Alive Iodine I mentioned before, this is scalar energized, so it's got the anti-frequencies of all known radioactive elements. So not only does it provide 100% bioavailable iodine, it provides scalar frequencies that neutralize radioactivity in the body. Liposomal vitamin C has been proven in Fukushima to remove radiation very well from the body. So this is a good brand, Live On Labs. Apple pectin, which is phenomenal for removing radiation from the gut. It's basically just ground up apple skins. There are pectin products on the market. Some of them are crazy expensive. And you know, it can get really, really expensive using those supplements. You can just get apple pectin powder, which is ground up apple skins, really cheap, and use that in bulk. And then also for pulling these elements out of the gut, these toxins out of the gut, what are known as the transuranic elements. This is uranium and the other radioactive elements on the periodic chart above uranium. Those have particle sizes that are too big for the zeolites to pull out of the body. But fortunately, they're also too big to go floating around into the rest of the body, so they stay in the gut. So any detoxifier that can latch onto them will pull them out of the gut. And so charcoal is a really good one. Activated food grade charcoal is really good for pulling toxins out of the gut, including radioactive particles, the transuranic elements. The elements below uranium on the periodic chart, those the zeolites can pull out of the body. So you can get this stuff out of your body. Then also clays, you know, there are various clays. I like Vitality Herbs and Clay because they've got several that are high in ormus. So you're getting the detoxifying aspects of the clay along with getting ormus into the body. Sunny 7 is a bentonite clay that's available in pretty much every health store I've ever been in the world. Montmorillonite clay is another good detoxifying clay. So what I do is use all of them. I make a powder and I travel with this. I have like this emergency first aid kit that I travel with where I have a lot of different kinds of detoxifiers for nuclear fallout, for parasites and pathogens, for viruses, and for any kind of toxin in the gut. So I take all of these, apple pectin powder, ground chia seed. I don't use psyllium seed husk because that's a bulking agent and some people are allergic to it or sensitive to it. So I leave that out. And then also I put bentonite clay, and actually I use sacred clay, and I use charcoal. So I mix all of those into a powder and I take it with me on the road, and then I can just mix it into water as I'm traveling, and I never have to worry about getting Montezuma's revenge or radiation poisoning or anything else. Now, another thing for getting parasites and pathogens out of the body, and this is, I use this a lot when I'm traveling, is chlorine dioxide. Some of you may be familiar with this under the name of MMS or Miracle Mineral Solution. A man named Jim Humble brought this out into prominence. But basically this is a bleach. This is one of the criticisms of it. And when you Google chlorine dioxide, you'll see all these FDA warnings and stuff about it being toxic, bleach, et cetera, even though the FDA themselves approved chlorine dioxide for human consumption about 40 some years ago. And it's still allowed to be used in water treatment systems and in restaurants for disinfecting food and cutting boards and stuff. Somehow when you use it to cure cancer, it suddenly becomes toxic, according to the FDA. But at any rate, you can take this stuff in two different forms. The one on the right, you mix two different solutions together, sodium chloride solution and citric acid solution. They react and they create the chlorine dioxide, which looks and smells like bleach, but it's not the same as Clorox. And you can then take that and put it into water, or I use lemonade, dilute it in lemonade and sweeten it a little bit. And that hides the taste. I use that when I'm traveling because it travels well. The chlorine dioxide solution on the left, the CDS, that stuff, they bubble the chlorine dioxide gas into water and the water absorbs it. And so that will do the same thing as the MMS, and it tastes much, much better. It's much easier to hide the taste in lemonade. So I'll make a pitcher of lemonade and sweeten it with stevia, not sugars, because that'll feed parasites and pathogens. So you sweeten it with stevia, and then I use for myself about 6 to 7 cc's of the CDS in 6 ounces of lemonade sweetened with stevia, and I'll drink that 3 to 5 times a day, depending on whether I'm sick. If I'm just doing it to prevent getting sick when I'm traveling, particularly overseas, I'll just do it 3 times a day for a few days after I've flown on an airplane. But beware, start with very small doses of this stuff and work your way up, because you may not be able to handle as big of a dose as me, particularly if you're very toxic. Toxic people need to take everything very slowly. Some people are so toxic they can only do food and juice at first. There's also a product called Microblast, and I can't tell you a whole lot about this stuff because the people that manufacture it have had attempts on their life from the agricultural industry, and they had to go into hiding because they originally developed it for agriculture. And so if you want to use it for agriculture, I'll just tell you, you can take a tablespoon of this stuff, put it into a gallon of water, and feed your plants with it, see what happens. You can also use it for parasite cleansing, although do not go calling these people up and saying, Ken roll a set. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you, I use it. I'll take between 25 and 50 drops, put it in a gel capsule, a gelatin capsule, and take that with water, and I will do that while I'm doing parasite cleansing, and that helps. But you can see the stuff at restandrepair.com. Now, also our good friend Mary Jane, marijuana, cannabis, hemp. It's legal in all 50 states. Some people know it as CBD or CBD oil. I prefer using the whole plant because it works better than the oils. Any kind of extract, the whole plant's always going to work better. And so I like to use hemp paste. And actually I thought I updated this slide, but you can still go to hemppaste.com to get hemp paste, but their actual website is mynutra.com, mynutra.com. And that I use that every day, man. I take this stuff every day. It's no wonder that the drug industry doesn't want this stuff on the market because it heals so many different things. It's crazy. It's really, really good for improving sleep. It alkalizes the body, which, that it helps healing with everything. It de-stresses the body and the brain, slows the brain down, particularly for people who are frying their brains with cell phones and stuff. This helps quite a bit. But it's expensive. The stuff is really expensive. So I recommend if you're going to buy it and use it long term, I think one little jar, like a 2,000 milligram jar, is like $175 or something like that. So, and that'll last you about a month. But if you buy it by the case, you can get it wholesale and drop the price down to about $95 a jar, I think. And so you could go in on with your friends and buy a bunch of it and get it for a much, much better price. That's what I do. And then another good, less expensive brand is Sol CBD. That's a good brand of you know what? I don't know why. I know I updated this, but there's another brand of a better brand of oil than the Sol CBD. It's, in my estimation, it's not as good as hemp paste, but it's the best CBD oil that I have tested, and I probably tested 20 different ones, is AndreasSeedOils.com. They have Apex CBD oil that is just super strong for an oil. That is a really, really good oil if you're going to use the oil, but you'll smell like a stoner taking it. I mean, it has a really strong smell of marijuana. The hemp paste does not, and the hemp paste tastes good. I actually like the taste of hemp paste. Now, another thing you can use, particularly, let's say you get sick from some of these pathogens and your stomach is too upset to take the MMS or the CDS, the chlorine dioxide. That happens to me on occasion because I've been targeted 4 times with energy weapons, and I've had GMO bugs showing up in my body, biowarfare agents. And so I've had instances where I was just too sick to take the MMS. And so I started with silver. So this is the best silver product I have seen on the market. There's a lot of confusion about silver and silver products on the market. Basically, it boils down to particle size. People will argue and debate about ionic versus colloidal versus, whatever, silver. And you really can't go by that because people are mislabeling what their product is and not calling it what it really is. So you have to ask what the particle size is of the silver. And you want either monoatomic silver or angstrom silver, where you've got just a few particles of silver, a few atoms of silver in a particle. And most products do not have that. Accelerated silver is a monoatomic hydrosol. It's the best silver I've found on the market, and so I use it exclusively, and I recommend it exclusively. This must be the wrong slideshow because these are old slides. Oxy powder, the information's not old, just some of the pictures. Oxy powder intestinal cleanse. This is a phenomenal product for colon cleansing, number one, intestinal cleansing. It works fantastic for that. You take a few capsules before you go to bed, you wake up the next morning, and you poop like a Russian racehorse. And you do that, I do that for about a month. I'll take it every day for a month when I'm doing cleansing. And it also, because it floods the GI tract with oxygen, it works really well for knocking back parasites and pathogens in the gut while you're sleeping. Because when you're sleeping, these bugs will regroup and regrow, especially in the gut. And so if you've got this in your guts while you're sleeping, it'll knock them back and really accelerate parasite cleansing. You can also use a parasite zapper. This is one of my favorites, the Don Croft Terminator Zapper from worldwithoutparasites.com. It's a good zapper. You basically, it's electrically powered. Those two little discs there are copper. You put them against your body wherever you want to clear parasites, and you can either ace bandage it on or tape it on or whatever. And then it'll put out a square wave frequency that will kill parasites and help kill off parasites. So when I've worked with people that had severe parasite and pathogen infections, I'm doing all of this stuff with them, including a zapper. And then also taking in probiotics. A lot of these parasites and pathogens are what are called pleomorphs, which means they are organisms that can actually change from one form to another, sometimes radically so. I mean, it's actually been shown that bacteria can morph into viruses, which should be completely impossible because you're talking about a completely different scale, not only a completely different organism, but a completely different scale of existence. And yet it's been scientifically shown that this can happen. So these bugs, when you have an environment in the body where your diet is conducive to pathogens, which means an acidic environment, which is caused by eating cooked food and acidifying foods, that creates a low oxygen acidic environment in the extracellular fluids of the body. And that makes a perfect environment for parasites and pathogens to grow. So even beneficial bacteria a lot of times will morph into pathogens in that kind of an environment. So that's why it's so important to be on a living foods diet and juicing and alkalizing the body and getting those extracellular fluids alkalized, because that starts shifting the environment so that these parasites and pathogens don't have an acidic anaerobic environment to grow and foster in. So while you're doing all that, you've got to take in probiotics. And yeah, these are the wrong slides. I've got newer probiotics, but I'll have the newer products on these slides when you guys, if you download them. So we've got some really phenomenal probiotics that I recommend now that are even better than some of these. But at any rate, you got to take probiotics in to crowd out the parasites and the pathogens. And so if you're making your own probiotics, which you can do with the EM1 in this picture, then you can be guzzling this stuff instead of paying huge amounts of money for small bottles of pills. And so that's one of the things I recommend and teach. And if you want instructions on how to do that, you can go to the downloads page that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this presentation, downloads.fractionallive.com, and you can download instructions on how to make your own probiotic using the EM1. Maybe I just got some old slides in here. But anyway, quantum biofeedback is another way. It's like a giant parasite zapper. So, so you can also use that for killing off parasites and pathogens and detecting radioactivity in the body. This is a device that NASA uses. It's not easy to measure radioactivity in the body. So practically speaking, for most people, the quantum biofeedback is going to be the easiest and most accessible way to do it. But there are devices like this TEP-C device from NASA that can measure radioactivity in the body. Okay, now detoxifying this stuff from the environment. So we can get this stuff out of the body, but why not get it out of the environment before it ever gets to you so that you don't have to deal with it so much? And that's what I do. So one of the ways is using that EM1, the effective microorganisms. That is a bacteria mixture that a Japanese agriculture professor named Dr. Chiro Wahiga came up with years ago. And basically it's a synergistic blend of microbes that feed off of sugars. And so you can take a quart of this stuff and mix it with a quart of blackstrap molasses, organic, and 5 gallons of water, and stir it up and keep it at around 95 degrees on a heat pad and wrap it inside of a blanket to keep it insulated. And in 3 weeks, you'll have 5 gallons of this stuff. And so then you can guzzle it all you want as a probiotic. You can also use it for a huge variety of different applications outside the body. For example, remediating polluted water, polluted soil, killing mold and mildew. I use this stuff inside my air conditioners here in Florida. Once a year, I spray this full strength inside my air conditioning systems. It literally eats mold for breakfast. It doesn't like just kill it. It eats it and gets rid of it. So this is some phenomenal stuff that you can brew yourself. This is a Japanese farmer, which I have a link. I have this video posted on my website at radiationlinks.freshandlive.com, where he used the EM1 on his crop. Now, this guy is in Fukushima City. He's a farmer, a fruit farmer in Fukushima City. And all the farms around him were so completely irradiated, nobody could sell their produce forever. And he got the EM1 and sprayed it on his soil and on all his plants. And guess what? It neutralized all the radioactivity. And he had the, their equivalent of the FDA and the EPA come out and test his crops and soil and found no detectable radiation. And so he was able to sell his crops with no radiation in Fukushima City. So we have the ability to neutralize radioactivity. Now, solutions for geoengineering pollutants and nuclear fallout. Again, why not keep this stuff out of your body by getting it out of your environment? Now, as I mentioned, these scalar waves that are zipping through the cosmos, and I mentioned the HARP antennas, they can create scalar waves. That's what these scalar interferometers, as they're known, these are the antennas that the government and the military and God knows who else is using to manipulate weather and manipulate consciousness on the planet and other things, using it for warfare. And so these scalar waves are what are known as longitudinal waves. And they will create these patterns in the clouds like this. So if you're in an area where you see cloud formations like this, you can bet your bottom dollar you're being bombarded with scalar frequencies that are not beneficial to living organisms. Used to be called HARP. Now they've got smaller antennas that are easier to hide. And it used to be that you could see when these things were turned on, you could see photos of them on Google Earth, but they've started photoshopping it out now, so you don't see them anymore on Google Earth. But those are classic longitudinal wave patterns in clouds. They also will create fractal patterns in clouds. These are actually clouds in my backyard that years ago, I saw, and it really aggravated me because I knew what was going on, and they have the chemtrails going on as well. And so this is a classic signature of using scalar interferometers with chemtrailing to create these fractal and longitudinal patterns in the clouds. This is what it looks like from a satellite view when one of these interferometers is running. Now you try and tell me that's a natural cloud formation. Give me a break. No way. And you notice the kind of peppered looking clouds. That's another classic signature of scalar interferometry going on. Now, Dr. Alexander Golod, who was in the Russian military, who's a very high-ranking officer in the Russian military. He had a multi-million-dollar annual budget, and he was tasked with studying pyramids, which he did. And to his credit, he was a very benevolent man, and he studied them for beneficial purposes, not just for weaponry, and found a lot of really amazing things that they will do, including, guess what, neutralizing radioactivity in the atmosphere and in the ground and in groundwater. And so he built this large pyramid outside of Moscow. It was 144 feet tall. It very mysteriously blew away last year in a freak storm, which was, from the scuttlebutt that I hear from people in the know, it was probably a manufactured wind that blew it over. Because normally pyramids will balance the weather for hundreds of, something like this will balance the weather for hundreds of mile radius around it. And so to have a storm come up and do something like that is extremely weird. So anyway, but before it got blown over, Golod had a budget. He had a multi-million-dollar budget, so he was able to study these quite deeply and found that they had all kinds of incredible benefits, including healing. These are people inside the pyramids. They're actually going there and getting healed of major diseases. And these globes they're sitting in front of, these are actually made of crystal. And so they're capturing the energy of the pyramid and then rebroadcasting it very strongly around these people. So people we're going into these pyramids and getting healed of major diseases. This is the inside of the pyramid. And this is what comes off the tip of the pyramid, a scalar vortex. This is a Kirlian photograph of a pyramid. But you see this double helix vortex, this scalar vortex coming off the tip of the pyramid. It looks just like what? DNA, right? Well, there's a reason that these structures in nature and in our bodies and in our physical universe look the way they do. It's because it's following this fractal spiraling pattern of this scalar energy that slows down and coagulates into our physical universe. And so pyramids put out this double helix vortex of energy. And in fact, this is exactly what is being found at other pyramids around the world where they're being studied. So Golod discovered with his pyramids that they will detoxify groundwater, reduce hardness, neutralize radioactivity in the atmosphere and in the soil and the water for hundreds of miles around, neutralize poisons placed inside the pyramids, improve people's immune systems and cellular regeneration, increase yields of seeds that are placed inside the pyramids, reduce the frequency and severity of seismic activity, because what they do is they release the tectonic shifts constantly instead of letting them build up and having larger releases. Radical decrease in lightning and severe weather, because that vortex, that scalar vortex Golod showed, it acts like a vacuum cleaner. It reaches out into space. It acts like a vacuum cleaner, and it pulls the pollutants out of the atmosphere out into space, or it alters them and neutralizes them. And so then when you clear the pollutants out of the atmosphere, that balances the charge in the atmosphere, and then you get normal weather for your area. He found these pyramids would heal the ozone layer, increase oil well yields, bring back new water springs to the surface, because spring water is high in monoatomic elements. You've got the bacteria in soil eating rocks and breaking them down into angstrom monoatomic particles, but they're trapped in the soil, and they get washed down into the aquifers underground by the rain, and eventually they collect in these aquifers, and then they levitate up to the surface because they're superconductors and they're anti-gravitational. So they put this pyramid in place, and they see all these springs popping out for many miles around, all over the place. It's because the pyramid, the scalar energy of the pyramid, is pulling on the monoatomic elements in the water and levitating up to the surface. So this is a way that you can get springs to appear in places like the Arizona desert by building pyramids. And this has been done. I know a person that did this in the desert of Arizona, built a pyramid about 50 feet tall near a little dampness in the soil, and guess what? They got a spring. Now, the most phenomenal thing that Golod discovered about his pyramids, and I'm going to go back to these fields around the pyramid, these grass fields around the pyramids. They discovered that there was a flower growing in the fields that no one had ever seen before. So Golod called in a botanist to have them identified, and they discovered that the flowers had been extinct on Earth for 11 million years. And so Golod theorized that the pyramids have the ability to energetically dip into what he called the quantum field. Some people might call it the Akashic records, and get the pattern for the flower and bring it into the present in the 3D. And since then, they've discovered with pyramids in other places that they brought back extinct species of bugs and other plants. So we potentially have the ability to bring back extinct species if we destroy them. And also, Golod showed this, and other people showing this. These pyramids generate energies of various kinds, including electricity at their tips. This is Dr. Valery Uvarov, who is a friend of mine. He is a Russian pyramid scientist, and he teaches all around the world and online and at the Bosnian pyramids in Bosnia. Brilliant, brilliant man. He, like me, has had extraterrestrial contact. He was actually taken up on a ship and shown around our solar system and shown a lot of interesting things. And I've got a really interesting interview that I'm going to be releasing with him soon. But if you really want to know how to build pyramids for specific applications, this is the man to talk to, because he has built, I don't know, hundreds of them around the planet, including lots of big ones. Right now he's got a very large pyramid complex in Siberia that he's building to create a community, a pyramid community where people can live around these pyramids. And they're already having phenomenal results with these things. He's got 4 large pyramids I think probably about a quarter mile apart from each other, maybe 30-foot tall pyramids. And then he's got a large pyramid in the center of this square. This may be 50 feet tall. And it creates this one gigantic energetic pyramid energetically. And so you've got a lot of really cool energetics going on there that enhance life and consciousness. And then, of course, Dr. Samir Osmanagic, Sam, as he likes to be called, he discovered the largest pyramid so far in the world in Bosnia. And these pyramids are being poo-pooed by mainstream archaeology because the discoveries they're making there will change the whole history, the whole narrative of human history that mainstream archaeology has been promoting. They've carbon dated these pyramids to 38,000 years, but my impression is they're probably a lot older than that. They've found artifacts inside of them showing that these were made by intelligent hands. There's writing and runes and different things. And when I say runes, that's R-U-N-E-S, not R-O-O-M-S. They found runes and tunnels and passageways and monoliths and all kinds of things that were constructed inside these pyramids. And as they excavate these tunnels out inside these pyramids, they're finding that the energy that they're measuring on these pyramids is increasing. And they're having phenomenal healing results with these things. So for example, with what are called the Ravne tunnels at the Pyramid of the Sun, there are people going in there, like they had a lady with stage 4 lung cancer that was given 30 days to live. She went and meditated 2 hours a day inside these tunnels for 12 days and went back to her home in Serbia and went to her oncologist, and there was no trace of cancer or the damage from the chemo and radiation that they had done to her. And so pyramids and pyramid energy, which is scalar energy, which amplifies the consciousness energy, all of that is extremely healing to the body and to the mind. And really what these things are doing is increasing the light in the body, because it's been shown, Dr. Thomas Bearden, who is a NASA nuclear engineer, he's one of the preeminent scalar physicists on the planet. And he was studying how human cells regenerate for a method for neutralizing radioactivity. And what he discovered was that human cells actually send a scalar signal back in time, because these scalar waves are multidimensional. They actually traverse time. They don't just traverse space. So human cells, when they regenerate, what they're doing is sending a scalar signal back in time to get the pattern for the healthy cell and bring it into the present. And that's how cells regenerate. That's how you can heal DNA damage. If DNA was the genetic blueprint, how can you heal DNA? Well, it turns out DNA is not the genetic blueprint. It's the carrier of the genetic blueprint. And the actual root of the blueprint is in the consciousness of the organism, and it can't be destroyed. So all you've got to do is raise the superconductivity in the organism, and that strengthens the connection between the energetic blueprint and the physical body. And then the DNA, which is a superconducting antenna, can bring that energetic pattern into the physical expression of the body. So that's how this stuff works. So when you're inside one of these pyramids or these tunnels, you're being bombarded with huge amounts of light energy or God consciousness that's flowing through and accelerating this cellular regeneration process. That's what's going on. And so I'm actually going to be speaking there in about 2 weeks at the Bosnian Pyramids on how all this stuff works. Now, another great source on, particularly for people who are interested in the technical aspects of things, Dr. Konstantin Meil from Germany, he's got a lot of books with very technical information and mathematics and scientific experiments on scalar energy, showing how it works, proving what it works. He's a very brilliant man. He also developed a device you can buy for about $2,500 that will put out scalar waves, which you can use for various purposes. But there are easier ways to do it. So I'm going to tell you about some of those. There's Dr. Thomas Bearden, the nuclear engineer I was telling you about. He's one of the preeminent sources for information on scalar energy if you want to understand this stuff. He's got a set of about 40 DVDs on free energy technologies and scalar energy and stuff. And he's got a bunch of different books. He's a phenomenal source. You can see YouTube videos of him online. And then, of course, I'm a source on this information. I've been manufacturing scalar devices for years, and powered and unpowered. There's a material called orgonite that you can make, which we'll get into a little bit more here in a moment, that basically you take some kind of a medium or a substrate like a resin, or you could use plaster or even concrete, but something that some non-conducting substrate. I recommend working with fiberglass, even though it's very toxic and has very toxic fumes. It's the easiest thing to work with because I've worked with a lot of different resins and materials, and they either don't work very well or they're really, really hard to work with. So fiberglass resin, typically you put some crystals, some minerals into the resin, and then when the resin hardens, it shrinks around these crystals and puts out scalar energy. And so the way to really optimize this is by using very small particles, very fine particles of minerals, of crystals that are high in ormus, like shungite, for example, is a really good one. It's very high in ormus. Quartz, selenite, kyanite, amethyst, I use those. And then you can also put metal particles, but use very fine ones. People typically use metal shavings from machine shops and stuff. Instead of doing that, go onto eBay and buy metal powders because you'll get exponentially more scalar waves from this way. We don't have time to talk about the physics of how that works, but basically if you do that when you're making orgonite, it will radically increase the scalar energy output from those devices. So we make my version of that that's been optimized for putting out the maximum amount of energy. And then I also make powered scalar wave devices like the Rest Shield. We also have one called the Home Shield, which I was going to have on here, but apparently I got the wrong slides here, that are powered scalar wave generators that will protect you against EMF. In the case of the pyramid here, the Rest Shield, it'll protect you against EMF. It entrains with the brain and the cells and slows you down and gets you into deep sleep at night. It's the most powerful EMF protection I know of on the market, and I've tried a lot of different devices. But then we made the one for outdoors called the Home Shield. Its real purpose is for clearing chemtrails, and that's all I'll say. If you want to know more about that, you can contact my staff at freshandalive.com and they can send you more information. But basically the Home Shield is 7 of these pyramids in one weatherproof package. You stick it outdoors outside of your house. It will protect your whole house against EMF, and it will improve sleep, and it has other benefits in the environment. It also improves plant growth outdoors as well. And here in Florida, I've noticed too, it seems to reduce the biting insects like mosquitoes and no-see-ums. It really decreases them, which is really nice. There are other people that have technology for neutralizing radioactivity. Dr. Radha Roy, who's dead. Thomas Bearden, Ewell Brown, who I work with, is also dead. Paul Brown. Most of these people are dead. And quite honestly, they were killed. The ones I know, they were killed because they had these solutions and other solutions very often. There are actually 61 patents worldwide for methods for neutralizing radioactivity, including 8 in Japan. These are the actual patents here listed. So it's not like we don't have ways of neutralizing radioactivity and cleaning up Chernobyl and Fukushima. We have, and we have had them for many decades. The reason that they're not allowed out on the market is because they imply a physics, or they utilize a physics that imply applications like free energy or technologies. If you can neutralize radioactivity, you can neutralize nuclear weapons. And the real purpose of the nuclear power industry is really to make materials for the nuclear weapons industry and to justify the nuclear weapons industry. And the countries that have the nuclear advantage do not want to let it go. And that's why they will not let these technologies out onto the market. Because if you can just fly over a nuclear silo and neutralize it, then all these nuclear weapons are useless. And these countries do not want to let go of it. So I'm going to skip over this stuff real quick. You can build your own. Again, if you want more information on the home shield, you can get more information on that. You can build your own orgonite devices. You can make little pyramids. You don't have to make these huge cloud buster devices like Don Croft teaches or taught. They do work, but it's just easier to make little pyramids. And so I've been teaching how to do that. You can learn how to do that. I have information on my blog at Fresh and Alive blog on how to do that. These are the tops of the home shield device that I manufactured. Again, I apologize for not having the correct slides. I'm not sure why I got the wrong slides here, but this is partially what the home shield looks like. You can go to freshandalive.com and see the home shield if you're interested in that. We've got a banner ad on the homepage for it. Now, when I first discovered this, we were making these little pyramids at my house, and my staff put 3 of them out on the back porch to cure in the sun. And I was out mowing the grass, and I saw this big fat chemtrail being laid, and it started spiraling and flying apart and dissolving real quick, and within seconds. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And then I got back to the house and I saw this sitting out. I thought, no, that couldn't be it. It couldn't be affecting the chemtrails. But I looked up, and for about a 5-mile diameter area, the sky was blue and clear of chemtrails. And then outside of that, there was all this white haze and chemtrail crap. So I got in my car and I drove around, and sure enough, there was like this 5-mile diameter hole in the sky where there was no chemtrails. So I came back and I put 2 more of them out, and I went back inside, and I came back a couple hours later, and as far as the eye could see, the skies were blue. So I got in my car again and I drove, and I got about 35 miles away before I saw the edge of it then. And so then I put a total of 7 of them outside, and I just left them and forgot about it. And then a couple of weeks later, I was at Disney World with my wife, and I could see at the edge, off in the distance, I could see the edge of the event horizon. So what these things do is they create scalar vortices that act like an upside down tornado of scalar energy. And the big opening is at the ground level, and the point of the tornado is up in space. And it actually acts like a vacuum cleaner, just like Golad's pyramid. And it pulls pollutants out of the atmosphere. It doesn't damage the atmosphere in any way. It doesn't modify the weather. It just pulls pollution out of the atmosphere and sends it out into space. And so it doesn't come back down on you and damage your crops and your environment. And it balances the weather, because when you get these pollutants out that cause the charge in the atmosphere to be off balance, when you balance the charge, then you get normal weather for your area. So you don't get drought, you don't get floods, you just get normal weather for your area. And so you can build these yourself, just little 6-inch pyramids, just stick them outside. I talk about how to do this on my blog, specifically at freshandaliveblog.com. This is a close-up. You can see these are not anything fancy. These are not nice ones like we make now and sell on our website. These are just old clunky ones I made with some pyramid molds off of eBay. You can look on eBay for soap molds or candle molds that are pyramid shaped and make these things. Or you can buy them. There are people that sell like this one. I don't remember the website, but this was for sale on eBay for a couple $1,000. And if you're using metals like this, you have to really understand the physics. So I recommend starting and not using metals. Just use these, non-conducting materials, use orgonite, but don't use metal until you learn how to use metal. But basically what this guy did was he created orgonite, which creates scalar energy, and then it creates these vortices that sends it up inside the pipes. And then it comes up to the tip, and he's got more orgonite, which creates more scalar energy, and then it goes up through the point and creates a vortex. So it creates a scalar field and it creates a vortex, and he's got some coils of wire which also create vortices. So that's what's going on there. And then this is a Don Croft style cloudbuster. I don't recommend using these, making these, because they're expensive to make and they're kind of complicated and clunky. You can just do it with little pyramids or other devices. You don't have to use these things. So anyway, that is the end of my presentation. And again, you can find these slides at downloads.freshanalyve.com. And